who's willing to put on their cameras, that would be very much appreciated, and the rest can keep all your microphones off so that there's no background noise. Can somebody just type in the chat, can you hear me? Thank you, Tam. So we have more than 40 people in the class, and currently only about 12 are logged into Zoom. So hopefully we'll get some more people joining. So the agenda for today is to discuss the homeworks that you all submitted on the 13th, and we'll get to that. But before we get to that, I'd like to just make an administrative announcement, and then also maybe discuss something else before we get into the homeworks. So once again, I'm requesting anybody to put on their cameras if they don't mind. Of course, I respect your privacy if you cannot, but it'll help me to see some friendly faces. Thank you, Julia. And thank you, Pierre. Though Pierre, your background is a little bit bright, so I'm not able to see your face very well, but that's okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'll change.
Thank you. Right. So I just wanted to let you know that Luke, the doctoral student, he's working on the teams, right, for your case assignments. We've had a few people who were registered, they did not do the first homework. So Luke is trying to track them down and ask them if they're really part of the class or not. They might have decided to drop. So once we get some confirmation, there'll be some stability in the number of participants. And Luke's goal is to form the teams and let you all know by early next week. So you still have some time before we get to the second half of the course when the case assignments are due. But we will form the teams early next week and give you access to the case materials as well. Do any of you have any questions on the syllabus or the course deadlines or anything of that kind of an administrative nature? By the way, you're welcome to use the chat if you like instead of the microphone. So let's start out by clarifying if there's any administrative issues that need to be addressed. If not, the second item I would like to discuss is a news item. I don't know if many of you followed that last Tuesday on the 14th of September. Oh, I see a question from Tam, so let me go to that. When can I find related materials regarding the video presentation and written case assignment? So this will be addressed in the third seminar. So let me go to the Moodle page, and I just want to share my screen. So here's homework 1, homework 2, homework 3. After homework 3, there's going to be an extended session on introduction to the case method. Yeah, here it is. I'm not sure you can see this, but it will be discussed on the 18th of October. Introduction to the case method. It's described on 18th of October. That's when we have a whole hour devoted to this. But again, there's, the basic guideline I can go over is that every team has to do 3 cases during the semester. 2 of them will be written memos, 1 of them will be a video presentation, and when the teams are formed, each team will be allowed to select which case they want to do for the video presentation, and that will be on a first come first served basis. You'll have to sign up on Moodle. So Tam says the deadline of the first video case presentation is on 22nd of November. Maybe I should go to instead of the Moodle, let's go to the syllabus. Just give me a moment. I'm pulling up the course syllabus here. Okay, so thank you, Tam, for pointing that out. We will have to do that a little bit earlier, right? We'll give you at least, right next week when the teams are formed, each team will be able to sign up for which case they want to do as a video presentation, right? And the guideline for what you are supposed to do is very similar to the case memo. So it's just that it's in video instead of written. So let's go to the guidelines. The guidelines for the assignments are here already. So this is the note on the case that you have to read, right? And here is the guidelines. You will prepare a 3-page report as if you were a staff member or consultant advising the protagonist, who's the key decision maker in the case. And your report should have 3 sections: problem definition, analysis, and actionable recommendations. And so even in your video presentation, you have to have 3 sections: problem definition, analysis of alternatives, and recommendations. The only difference is that you will be recording it as a video instead of a written memo. So those are the guidelines, and once the teams are formed and you can read the case, it will become a little bit clearer. So Tam, I've already showed you in the course syllabus what the guidelines are for the assignment, and I've said that you'll be able to sign up for your video case next week after the teams are formed in Moodle. So that should that should enable you to make progress, even if we discuss this on the 18th of October, is just going to go over those guidelines again, right? So the main thing for you is to get the case early, which will be done next week, and organize your teams to start working on it. Okay, so Tam finally said clear. Thank you. Very good. I'm glad you brought it up. Any other administrative issues that we can address right now? Okay, so the second item on my agenda is to discuss the announcement that Apple made last Tuesday. I wonder if some of you might have, seen some reports of that in the press. Every September, Apple makes this announcement about their new products and services. So I wanted to spend a few minutes discussing that. Does anybody recall what were the contents of that announcement and what were your reactions to it? Given the theory that we've been learning in terms of the chapters and the videos, are there any things that you found interesting about the Apple announcement last Tuesday? And you can use the chat or you can unmute your microphone and speak.
So wasn't the release about the new iPhone coming out?
Yes, thank you, Maria. They announced the iPhone 13. What else did they announce?
I actually don't know. That was the only thing that I really paid attention to. But then at least that got me thinking that it was only like a minor improvement to the already existing iPhones and smartphones in general. But I felt like they were promoting it as something like new and profound instead of only a minor improvement to already existing products.
Okay, very good. So thank you for that. Let's reflect on what Maria just said. Is that Apple, because it's an annual announcement and they called the new product the iPhone 13, so they're kind of pitching it as if it's something new generation, right? And Maria's observation was that it doesn't quite represent that, but it's a minor improvement, and I would agree with that. It's what we call incremental innovation, right? In the vocabulary of what we've been studying, right? It's that almost on a very high frequency every year, the high-tech company like Apple has to make incremental improvements. Why is that? One is to close the gap with competitors, right? If Samsung already has certain of those, performance and features, then Apple has to catch up. Also, it is being reactive to the market, right? The market and the customers tell Apple what kind of improvements it wants, and then Apple collects all of them makes those changes throughout the year, but it announces it together. And so that's a good observation Maria made. iPhone 13, they say, is just, if you had an iPhone 12, then there's absolutely no reason to buy the iPhone 13. Maybe if you go back to the earlier models like the 10 and previous to that, there might be some big performance improvement if you had an older iPhone. But if you had a recent iPhone, then clearly it doesn't, as a consumer, it doesn't give you that much of a benefit. Let's see if anybody else noticed any other product announcements on that same day from Apple, apart from the iPhone 13.
Yes, I have one of the Apple Watches, and a while ago I was looking. So I have the first generation. So I was looking into buying a newer one, and I went to the store a while ago just to find out that in the Apple Watch segment, nothing really happened over the generations to come. And so they apparently also announced a new Apple Watch. So I looked through it, and it, again, nothing really changed, but they make everything they say seem like it's a great new improvement. And maybe you could put it in like it's an incremental innovation at best, but they make it seem like it's something radically new. So yeah, maybe that's something.
Yes, thank you, Julia. And they have to, as good marketeers, you have to put it in the best light, right? You have to make a song and dance about it, because even for the people who have older iPhones, you want to motivate them to upgrade, right? So you have to be aggressive. You have to use language and messaging that is exciting. So to that extent, that is all par for the course. The number, I believe, Tam, is Apple Watch 7. That's the one that they announced last Tuesday, and it is supposed to have some better health and wellness features, to monitor your vitals better. And so for those who are using their watch for, keeping track of health and fitness, they might see some benefits. And new MacBook Pro and new iPad as well. Most of these have newer processors which are faster. So now Apple designs and manufactures, or it actually designs and then gives it to a contractor to be manufactured. So it has much more control over bringing out faster microprocessors every year compared to the competitors who depend on Intel or some other manufacturer to come up with the improved designs. Apple has much more control over its supply chain to innovate with better performing microprocessors every year. So that lets them be on track with the incremental innovation. If nothing else, they will have newer, faster processors every year. Good. And again, just to relate this to what we've been, reading and studying, we know that incremental innovation has to be done every year. There is enough revenue and profits in it for Apple on an annual basis, but the real radical or breakthrough innovation takes much longer, because you have to push the limits of the science and the engineering to get those killer new products, if you will, which come maybe once every 5 to 7 years. Like the iPhone was launched in 2007, the first iPhone, and what is it, 14 years later, it's still contributing hugely to Apple's revenue and profits. But since then, they've tried a few new categories. It's debatable, but some people might consider the Apple Watch to be something that was more than incremental, right? Now we are hearing that Apple might be working on some sort of software for a self-driving car. It's working on augmented reality, right? So we'll have to see if these things that are rumored, whether they turn out to be radical or breakthrough in any way. And we don't know when they'll come out. So companies, high-tech companies, have to be ambidextrous. They have to do both. The radical innovation is much harder and it's done less frequently. The incremental innovation has to be done frequently, and it can be a very good source of revenue and profits as well. Okay. Any closing thoughts on the Apple announcement?
If I may say something.
Yes, please,
Yeah.
Petri.
Yeah, even though of course there were like incremental innovations and nothing new, so to speak, nothing new under the radar, but yeah, there are the brand loyalists who are gonna buy everything that Apple puts out on the market, and they don't they don't really care is there something new rather than the new name. So they will buy it, and that it's the loyalty ships engagement to the brands are very strong with Apple. Like we all know that they're always like in the top 3 or number 1 in the most loyal brands, etc., etc. So, but of course, incremental innovations are important, and radical innovations in sometimes to really shake up the whole industry. Nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Petri. That's a good comment. I would just like to add that now Apple is such a huge company in terms of revenue that their stock price, if there has to be any boost to it, then it's only the really the breakthroughs that can move the needle. Otherwise their stock price will keep going sideways. When your base of revenue is so large, then to get growth in percentage terms is a much more difficult task. And so yes, they make good money on the incremental, but surely they do want to go after the breakthroughs as well, and they have to use their immense cash flow, right? They have such good cash reserves that they have to use them in R&D projects which might result in breakthrough. So I believe that as a company, Apple wants to do breakthroughs, because it helps their growth and their capital appreciation, but it is more difficult to do because it depends on the science and the engineering to achieve those breakthroughs. Thank you. Do we have any other people who would like to comment on the Apple announcement? Okay. So then the next thing we would like to discuss is, we've done all these homeworks, chapter 1 through 4. That's quite a lot of material, but were there any concepts or frameworks or tools that you found interesting that you might like some more discussion on? We could revisit any of those things that you found either more interesting or a little bit unclear. So now I'm throwing it open for discussion on any of the concepts from chapter 1 to 4 in general before I delve into the specific homeworks that you have written about. So please go ahead and bring up any topics that you want to be discussed in from the content of chapters 1 through 4. Anything new or interesting, or maybe your experience has been different than what the concept suggested? Anybody who has any work experience in some high-tech environment, did you find any of those concepts, frameworks, or theories less applicable or more applicable to the kind of experience that you had? Anything to share?
Well, I don't have from work experience per se, but I feel like a lot of the terms could be reflected onto a lot of the relatively modern companies that have become more service oriented rather than only offering products. And as an example, for instance, Netflix, that really changed the movie rental market away from the brick and mortar stores online and completely basically destroyed the competition, or the old competition more like.
Right, very good. So Netflix did it twice. First they destroyed the bricks and mortar competition of Blockbuster, and then they launched DVD by mail, right? And then their streaming service has creatively destroyed their DVD by mail business, right? So this is a very important, approach, which is that not only do you have to take on the competition, which we have done even in traditional business, but now in the high-tech environment, it's very important sometimes for companies to creatively destroy their existing businesses, right? If, for example, you see that consumer needs are headed towards instant gratification, and you see that the technology bandwidth is improving so that the streaming experience is approaching that of a DVD, then you have to be willing to destroy your existing business. And I think that's the example that Maria's observation illustrates very well. If you don't eat your own lunch, then your competitors will eventually eat your lunch. If Netflix continued with DVD by mail and did not get into the streaming business, then other competitors would have got into the streaming business before them. So that's why this is also what we call the innovator's dilemma, right? When you see something disruptive on the horizon, how quickly or how slowly should you adopt it, right? Internally, it has the potential to destroy your existing business. But sometimes if you invest too early, that may not pan out and it may turn out to be a flop, right? Consider Google's investment in the glasses, right? That didn't work, right? So sometimes if you invest too early in the disruptive technology, it may turn out to be a waste. And if you wait too long, then competitors might come in and preempt you. That's the innovator's dilemma. You have to have some investment in monitoring these new disruptive technologies and then jump onto the bandwagon as quickly as you think it will work out in the future. Very good. So that was a good example where Maria applied, the concepts from the readings to her own observation of Netflix. I'd like to give a chance to others as well. Were there any concepts or frameworks or theories that you read about or saw in the video that you think have some good applications in practice?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I know yeah, it's just my own questions. But anyway, like Tesla has been used as like a very one of most typical example of like pioneer, like the one who first invented something. But I know that before Tesla, like Nissan from from Japan. Yeah, like they the one who first introduced not first one, but they the first one who made the definition, the concept of electric car like broadly. But I don't understand why many people like forgot that and only use Tesla. So what exactly like it has to be considered as the pioneer, the first one? Is it the one who first invented, or is it the one make the concept broadly? Like I don't get that one.
Yes, thank you, Tam. I understand your question. It's a really good one. What is the definition of a product leader, right, or a pioneer? So I would put it this way. You're absolutely right. Nissan Leaf had an electric car before the Tesla. But, again, if you look at the history, the Tesla had a sports car called the Roadster even before the Nissan Leaf. But it was like $100,000. And I'm sure there were other experiments by other manufacturers of electric vehicles before that. So when we say product leader or pioneer, we're really talking about making a successful business in the mass market, right? So it's not really just the first one to experiment with the technology. The pioneer or the product leader is the one that creates the mass market as a successful, viable business model. And that's why Tesla gets the credit, because Nissan Leaf, it had a smaller penetration in the market. Tesla has much more larger installed base, and Nissan has not kept up with the innovation that's required to really excite the mass market. They have been lagging behind since their former chief executive Carlos Ghosn got into trouble in Japan, So Nissan has fallen behind, and Tesla gets the credit for bringing the electric vehicle to the mass market with the Model 3 for $35,000. So I hope that's my perspective on what really defines a product leader, is that you have to be successful in creating the mass market. Otherwise, you're just an experimenter.
I see. Thank you. Yeah, it make more clear now because I was just like have a big messing with that one.
Okay, very good. So let's have some more discussion. This is your time. You've done the readings, you've watched the videos. What is it that you found interesting and might like to discuss more? I do have my homeworks listed, which I want to comment on. But before that, I want to give everyone a chance to bring up their own, views of what they found interesting or confusing. Nobody has any concepts you wish to bring up? Okay, in that case, I'm going to go to the homeworks specifically. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on some of the things that have been written that might require clarification. And I've given the full points for good faith effort. So if you did the homework and posted it, then you've got the 6.67 points, and that is visible in the Moodle grade book. So, if you want, you can always check, okay, did I get the credit for my homework or not? That credit is given for good faith effort, but it doesn't mean that what everybody has written is right. And so now what I'm going to do is provide some constructive critique on some of the concepts where I think that there may be some refinement required. Okay, so I hope that will clarify some understanding of what the concept actually means. And so I'm going to share my screen with the Moodle. And I hope you can see all of these, right? So now I'm not able to see the chat because I'm focused on the screen. So you're welcome to add comments in the chat. I'll come back to it in a little bit. But let's start off with the concept of the network effect that Jasmine has written about. Could you please read this and then let's have some discussion on this? Read all the 3 parts quickly. So my question to you is that if you were to refine this, at least the A part, the understanding, is there anything that you would clarify or add to or refine in this answer? It says that the value of the product or the service increases when the number of users increase. That is the network effect. Do you all agree with that, or is there something that could be improved about it, or is there something missing?
I don't have something about this sentence particularly, but would something else be okay too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I actually wrote about this one too.
Okay.
So, in the second part that was about why it is important for marketers and the management. I noticed that the person who wrote this only looked at the positive side that network effects can have and not the negative sides. So rather than, I think network effects, rather than being something additional that can elevate the growth of the business, it's more like something that is detrimental to certain business models. Looking at like online platforms, for example. When online platforms or anything really, online games or anything of this sort aren't able to generate a large user base, then they aren't able to have their product then their product isn't as value to the customers as it should be, and it might be really dangerous for the business and for the product. Yes.
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? I mean, the network effect is desirable. Every platform would like to have it, but it's a challenge to get there. Is that what you're trying to convey?
I meant more like, I mean, there is a positive and a negative network effect, right? It can go in both ways. So of course, the more users, with the increase in users, the value of the product also increases exponentially. But if there is few users, say for example, Airbnb, if there is few sellers on the platform who offer their houses to be up for rent, then the users won't have a lot of value if there is nothing for them to use. So the platform Airbnb as a whole will suffer, and that's what I
Right.
mean.
So that's what I mean. There is an upside and a downside, right?
Right,
Whenever
right.
you have a strategy, of course, there's a recommended way to go. You know, if you want to create a network effect, for example, you need to get big fast, which is, for example, by giving zero membership, right? Not having a price to join the network. But of course, there's a risk that you won't get there, and therefore the whole business model might collapse, right? More importantly, from a public policy perspective, if you do have a dominating platform, it's not good for the competition to be able to get in there, right? So then you get these monopolies or oligopolies like a Facebook and Amazon and things like that. So yes, there are those things, but as a strategy, I think it's something that is desirable, that most of these platforms would like to be the leader and get big
Yes,
fast.
I'm just saying it's more of a necessity of often maybe it's more of a necessity than just something they desire. It's something they need in order to be able to succeed. But yeah, maybe it's my
Now, the thing that, in my opinion, which you said, which is missing from this particular answer, is that the value grows exponentially. This answer does not have the exponentially. All products, the value will grow with the number of users linearly. Even if we buy soap or shampoo, right? The more people that buy it, the value is going to increase because the unit costs come down, it becomes cheaper, right? We all feel good about, buying the product that everyone has. But in high-tech platforms, the value grows not by the number of users n, but by the number of users n square, which is the real difference in high tech. Value grows even in low tech when there are more users, but it grows incrementally. It doesn't grow exponentially. That's the refinement that I would make to this. But that's thank you for you did bring it up, so I want to recognize that. Okay, so this was one. Anybody has any comments about the network effect? If not, let's go to another concept. And let me share. So this is about a product champion, what Otto has written. Please read it and then comment on it. So let's have a discussion on this. Do you agree with this interpretation of what a product champion is, or would you like to critique it? In the A part, the last sentence is, this concept reminds one of the pioneer concept. There is a fine line between champion and pioneer, and that's how successful outcome is. Is this your understanding of what a product champion is? And you can use the chat, or you can come and speak in the microphone. Where did we come across the idea of a product champion? In under what topic or under what chapter? Do you recall? Why is a product champion important in high-tech marketing? Any thoughts? This answer seems to reflect that product champion is applies to a company. Is that correct? Does product champion, the way we have studied it, does it apply to a company or to a person? Any thoughts?
Aramto, if I remember correctly, so the product champions, they are like the persons and the employees, the ones who like innovate and come up with the ideas and strategies and different kind of things. So they're the real people, so to speak, who are like thinking these things and etc. If I remember something correctly.
Yes, Petri, you do remember correctly, and thank you for bringing that up, because that's exactly right. A product champion is an employee of the company. Doesn't have to be at a very high level. It could be anybody in the front levels or in the middle of the organization who believes very strongly in a particular innovation. And then that person fights the bureaucracy and gets resources allocated to make sure that the product gets launched and eventually is recognized as a hero. Okay, so examples of that are, the yellow post-it note, right? I've got this on my desk. This was invented by a gentleman called Art Fry at 3M. 3M is mainly a company which makes a lot of diversified products, but they used to make, or they still make, industrial adhesives. The adhesives that are used to put siding on a house. So those kind of construction strength adhesives. And Art Fry, he actually was told to make another better construction adhesive, but he made a very weak glue. And initially his supervisor criticized him. What is this nonsense? You're wasting resources. We don't need this weak glue. We need something much stronger, right? And then eventually he got this into this shape, took it to the CEO, and the CEO liked the idea and gave him resources, and eventually this became $100 million business. So that's the notion of a product champion, and it's very different from the notion of being a product leader or a pioneer. So I think This answer is quite off the mark. And in the example of Uber, it is Travis Kalachnik. He was the founder of Uber, a young guy who actually he faced the shortage of regular taxis in San Francisco, and then he decided, he was a computer science nerd. He decided to write the initial code and got some of the private drivers to come on and be on Uber. So Uber certainly had a product champion, but Uber itself is not a product champion. So I just want to clarify that. And I hope you all saw the difference between what the concept really is and what has been written here. Any thoughts?
In that case, I have a question. Like the product champion, is it has to be like the one that came up with a new product ideas, or or it could be anyone that come up with just like a new business model. For example, like I know in the case of Philips, few years ago, there was a manager and he has saw that Philips is now like falling back on the market of home appliance and things like that, because like there were too many fake product from China market, for example. So like he came up with that idea. He decided maybe like they should sell the business and go with a new business model. And now like they mainly produce medical device and equipment and things like that. Like, is that person like a product champion, or he has to come up with new product idea?
So not only has the person got to come up with a new product idea, he or she has to take it to full implementation, launch and success. Okay. So in your example, the Philips manager made a decision to sell off the business, right? That's not the same as coming up with a new product idea. So even if, there are many people within organizations that might have suggestions for new ideas, like in brainstorming, but that's not what a product champion is. A product champion believes passionately in the future of that idea, so much so that they are willing to face obstacles and criticisms within their organization. It might be something disruptive, and initially people will criticize them, but they still stay with the idea and they take it all the way to launch and success. That is what, then you can, it's only after the race is won that you can declare the champion. Would you agree?
Yeah, well, like in that case, like he came up with the new business idea, and Philips now is success in that new business idea, then could he be considered as the product champion?
Yeah, if he suggested the original idea, if he faced obstacles that he had to overcome, if he had to, fight for resources, and then he managed to persuade everybody else. I don't know enough about the details of that example, but yes, if he was able to do all that and create a successful business, then he would be considered a product champion.
No, okay. I don't know if he faced that much obstacle, because in the case I read, like it didn't like describe much about that. It just like Philips, like it just said in general Philips cope with the threat of being falling back, and then like the manager come up with idea, and then they also struggling and take time to consideration and make the final decision to sell the business and then come up with a new one. So I think maybe there's a lot of difference.
But as I said, if the decision was just to sell off a business, then certainly that's not a product champion. You have to treat the new idea. If he took it from,
I see. Yeah. It's clear to me now. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else has any thoughts about product champion? Okay, let me go to another concept. I'm going to share my screen again. So this concept is about differentiated defender customer intimate. You can go through A and B and C, and then let's come back and discuss it in a couple of minutes. So my question is on the C part. I think A and B are correct. But my question to all of you is, would you agree that Apple and Tesla are examples of differentiated defender customer intimate? The examples that have been cited here, two companies that come first to my mind is Apple and Tesla. Both are innovative and have been able to differentiate.
I might have one idea.
Yes.
So the first thing that came to my mind when I saw those particular two companies was that those are examples for companies who don't adapt to the local markets. So they, Apple and Tesla both bring out entirely standardized products. So I think since the differentiated defender customer intimate strategy is looking to hyper analyze the customer's needs and direct towards them, maybe they're not the best examples.
So you don't think Apple and Tesla, their products are differentiated when they first come out?
Sorry, I don't think I understand.
My question is, you don't think that Apple, when it first came out with the iPhone in 2007, was differentiated from any other phones that were on the market?
Well, yes, it was.
So the process of standardization took some years later, right? It became standard later. But at the time of innovation, when they commercialize the product, I think one might say that both Apple and Tesla were differentiated from the other offerings that were available. No?
Yes.
So I think that I'm not taking issue with the fact that Apple and Tesla have differentiated products, but the concept is differentiated defender / customer intimate. Does Apple and Tesla fit that model? I mean, every form of differentiation is not a differentiated defender. or customer intimate? A pioneer or a product leader definitely can be different, can have differentiated products. But there's something else that bothers me about these two examples not fitting the category. I want to see if anybody else would like to comment on this. Do you think Apple and Tesla are good examples of differentiated defender or customer intimate? And if not, why not? It has to do with the definition of what is differentiated defender slash customer intimate. Try to focus on the customer intimacy part. What does that mean? What does it mean for a company to have customer intimacy? Any thoughts?
Is the I was the one who wrote it.
Yes.
So is the problem there that they're maybe two big companies so that they're not able to maintain close relationships with their customers, maybe? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
the essence of this typology is that they have to be very much in touch with their customers and have good data, you know, about their needs and preferences and so on. And I think that Apple and Tesla, they come out with great products, but because they are visionary, because they have intuition and judgment, not because they are in very good touch with their customers. That's exactly what makes them product leaders rather than this particular typology. This typology says that you have such good data about your customers that you're able to continuously give them what they want. So, when you consider the whole history of Apple and Tesla, would you say that they follow this approach more, or do they follow more being a product leader or a pioneer?
Probably more of pioneers. Yeah, I admit it was very difficult to come up with
Okay.
companies.
So I think Amazon is a better example because they have so much data on you and me that they can make recommendations that are customized. That is what illustrates customer intimacy. So, this is not just being differentiated in your product, this is being differentiated based on having good data about the needs and preferences of your customers and making customized recommendations on what they will need in the future. Okay. Any other thoughts on this particular concept? Otherwise, we can go to another one. Here's one on intelligence generation. Let's share this one. Tell me if you agree with this concept, the way it's been interpreted, or can it be refined in some way? How would you provide any constructive feedback to improve this answer? Anybody? Is intelligence generation only about potential customer needs? Any thoughts? What else do you need to collect if you want to get a good picture of what's happening in the marketplace? Is it enough just to generate intelligence about customers? I think somebody else wrote also an answer about this.
I wrote about this as well, and I think you have to generate information about competitors and the market and other emerging technologies as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Taru, for your comment. You can't limit intelligence gathering just to customers, but one has to have a broader view of intelligence. You need intelligence about competitors, about technological trends, about socio-cultural, political, all of those things, right? That's how you will collect intelligence. So that's a good refinement of this answer. And again, you see the C part, the example is just about a company, but it says one good example from Alibaba Cloud, data integration product, a secure, low cost, stable, and efficient data synchronization. But it doesn't really explain what the intelligence generation mechanism is. So when we ask for an example of a company that's used this product or used this concept, I expect you to say, how are they doing intelligence generation? This one, the C part just drops some names of companies without telling us what their intelligence generation process is. So that could be improved as well. Any other comments about this concept? Okay, let's go to another one. Knowledge spillover. Please have a quick read of this and again tell me how this could be improved or any other dimensions to this. So, any comments or suggestions with regard to refining the understanding of what knowledge spillover is? The A part says knowledge spillover is used when a company, organization, or similar utilizes previous knowledge or information on their own production or innovation creation.
Based on my understanding, it was about a company using another company's like created knowledge.
Yeah, but it is across sectors. That is the essence of this. We always expect that companies within the same industry will utilize knowledge from each other. But when you go to completely different sectors or industries and apply the knowledge, then that becomes a more of a knowledge spillover from one industry to another, right? So one example that I think we gave in the video was that the first applications of solar panels was by NASA in spacecraft, right? And then what happens is that years later, it becomes applicable to commercial and residential construction of buildings. So that's the real spillover. There may be other space agencies like NASA which would have used solar panels on spacecraft after NASA. But the real knowledge spillover is in going across industries and applying knowledge from one sector to knowledge in the other sector. That's one important point. Also, this answer says in the A part, it means knowledge utilized, that company has not paid anything to that source of knowledge. No, it is not related to payments at all. You may pay, you may license the technology, from the source, but it is still, if it's applied in a new sector or a new industry, then it is considered knowledge spillover. So, NASA always licenses its technology, and I would imagine the first people in construction to use it on buildings would have paid for it. That's how NASA makes some revenue, being a government agency. But then it's not important that you not pay for it. You may pay or you may not pay. If you don't pay, you're running the risk of some, patent infringement, which might have some legal consequences. But at any rate, it's about applying knowledge from one sector to another. A second part of this is that, in the B part, knowledge spillover is always considered as positive, right? Because you can create breakthroughs utilizing that knowledge spillover. And I think that is one aspect of it. The other is that marketeers have to understand that applying knowledge spillover in an absolutely new sector might have negative consequences as well. It's not always positive. And the example I'd like to give you is from drugs and pharmaceuticals. There was a company called Merck, which made first, a painkiller called Vioxx. And, this was applied, it was supposed to be for painkillers initially, right? Just like ibuprofen or acetaminophen. But what happened was that some doctors started prescribing it for some other off-label uses, and especially in the area of heart disease. And then, it interacted with other medications and people died. Okay, so that's an example where if you take the drugs that were approved for one particular therapy and then you try to apply it to other areas which doctors are able to do, they are able to experiment with off-label uses legally, but then the consequences in that instance was that people died. So knowledge spillover may have positive or negative consequences, and that's why marketeers have to be very careful in implementing knowledge spillovers. Any comments or thoughts about this concept? So notice that we are going over these in great detail because there is a certain benefit to knowing the vocabulary and the application of the concepts. You will be using some of these concepts, frameworks, and theories in your case memos and your case videos. When you analyze the cases, you'll be applying these concepts. So I want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of them. Or if you were to, interview for a job, these are concepts that are very precise and have specific meanings, right? And so if you're discussing something with the interviewer about, some vocabulary that comes up in the course of the interview, I want to make sure that you have a very clear understanding of what the correct concept is. And this is the only way to learn about it, because most of it is asynchronous. So this is my way of giving you some feedback. Okay. Let's go to one more concept. Yes, the concept of product leaders, which we've discussed a little bit, but please try to critique this answer. So what do you think of the A part? Does the answer explain what a product leader or a prospector or a pioneer is? And how would you try to improve this answer? Any thoughts? It says that my understanding of the concept is that there are companies and products that have the advantage of being the leading product or the pioneer of a sort. What do you think of this explanation?
I think it's like you explained to me before. It's not only advantage like of being leading the product, but they also have to be successful, like really successful in the mass market to be able to consider as the product leader, like you explained me.
Yeah, thank you, Tam. So the problem with this answer is that it has no meaningful information, right? It says that a product leader is one that has the leading product. That's what we call in philosophy, it's called a tautology. A tautology is like this. Somebody asks, what is the sound of clapping with one hand? And the answer is, the sound of clapping with one hand is the sound of clapping with one hand. So you cannot explain a concept by repeating what the concept is. You have to break it down into some more meaningful, simpler terms, right? So this is the problem with this answer, is that it doesn't really give us any information on what a product leader or pioneer is. Okay. And then look at the B part. I believe it is important for marketeers to know their competition and to be aware of the ones that are the pioneers as of now, and how that affects the market. Again, there's so little information in this. It doesn't really address the question, why is it important for a marketeer to know this concept? So let me pose that question to you all. If you were to rewrite the B part, how would you explain why is it important for any high-tech marketeer to know the concept of a product leader? So the way, I would explain it is, why is it important? It is one of 4 types of strategic postures that a high-tech company could adopt. There's the product leader, there's the fast follower, there's the differentiated defender, and then there's the operationally excellent company, right? So you have to know all these choices, because you have to decide, when you want to get into some kind of innovation, how aggressive do you want to be about that opportunity? If you want to be the product leader, you have to have enough funding and financing to develop the market yourself. And if you don't, then you have to consider the other 3 options. Maybe be a fast follower. Okay. The differentiated defender and the operationally excellent come later in the product life cycle, when it's somewhat mature, right? Then when you have more competitors, you can decide how you want to defend your position, by differentiation, by being customer intimate, or by being operational excellent. So you have to understand that there is a portfolio of 4 strategic options available whenever you want to consider innovating in a new product or a new market. That's where this becomes meaningful. The product leader is the most risky of all the strategies and requires the most investment. That's what will make the explanation or the importance quite meaningful. Any thoughts or comments about this? So again, although these concepts are presented individually for your answers, you have to develop some mastery over the entire body of theory and the framework. What else is available in terms of strategic options? Then you can decide which one you want to do as a company. Any comments? Okay, and the last thing I would like to pose as a question. We've had the concept of creative destruction. It's been answered properly, and we've also discussed it. But when we were discussing the culture of innovativeness, which is a part of chapter 3, there were there were two facilitators of innovation. Creative destruction was one, and willingness to cannibalize was another. So my question to you is, what's the difference between creative destruction and willingness to cannibalize, or is there no difference? Any thoughts about this question? What is creative destruction and what is willingness to cannibalize? How do we, is there a distinction between these two concepts or not? Any thoughts?
At least I would say that there is a minor difference because creative destruction is about destroying potentially businesses, either other businesses or own business, whereas then the willingness to the
Cannibalize?
yes cannibalize is about maybe harming the sales of, for instance, own products.
Yes, thank you, Maria. That is really that is accurate, and I got the feeling that sometimes whoever wrote the answers to the creative destruction might have had some confusion between the two. Let me illustrate with an example. You know, the example of cannibalization is Apple had the iPod, which was a standalone music player before it launched the iPhone in 2007, right? Now, the iPhone had three functionalities embedded within it. It was a phone, it was a music player, and it was an internet browser. Whereas the iPod was only a music player. So Apple could foresee that eventually the iPhone will cannibalize the iPod. Okay. So as Marie mentioned, cannibalization is at the product level. Eventually the iPod had to be withdrawn after a few years because the iPhone completely took away the value in people buying the iPod. However, they were part of the same business unit. The iPod was replaced by the iPhone, but it was within the same business unit of, handheld mobile devices. So the business survived. Whereas when you are saying creative destruction, Netflix's streaming service, which was a different business unit, completely destroyed the business model of DVD by mail. So creative destruction, the application or the unit of analysis is a new disruptive business destroying a completely self-contained business, whereas cannibalization is at the product level. It may or may not affect, it will not destroy necessarily another business. It might just affect the sales of a product within the same business unit. So Marie was absolutely on track, and I hope you all appreciate that there is a difference. Otherwise, we would not have two separate facilitators of innovation there. Okay, so those are all the concepts that I wanted to go over with you for the homeworks. I read them all in great detail. As you can see, I made notes and I wanted to provide some more clarity on what is, the right concept, what's its importance, and some examples of that. And I hope that was useful. Let me see if anybody would like to bring up any other concepts from those chapters or anything else that you would like to discuss before we close out our seminar. Any closing thoughts, any suggestions, any experiences you would like to share? You can use the chat or the microphone. Okay, so I'll close out this session today. Thank you all for your participation, especially those who made comments and provided clarifications. This video recording will be made available on Moodle, so you can tell your classmates if they missed it, they might want to go back. Again, the important thing is when you apply these concepts during the case analysis, make sure all your team members understand the concept before applying it. Otherwise, there will be some disagreements or confusion within the teams. And as I said, Luke is working on the teams. They will be assigned and put up on Moodle early next week, and you will also have access to the 3 cases, and then you can sign up which case you want to do as a video presentation on a first come first serve basis. So thank you all. Have a good evening, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.